Carl Bernstein was born in Washington. He attended the University of Maryland, but lost interest and dropped out, and went to work as a copy boy for the Washington Star, whence he drifted to the Post at age 19, joining the Metropolitan staff. The two reporters, interestingly enough, did not know each other well when they were assigned to the story, and apparently had professional misgivings about one another. I should like to begin by asking Mr. Bernstein whether he feels free to vouchsafe to us his feelings based on his familiarity with the case, on whether Mr. Nixon knew A, about Watergate, and then B, about the cover-up.
Well, all I think that we have to go on are the best evidence there, and neither of us is a judge. I think we can just make the same judgments as anyone else. Is primarily the presidential tape recordings. On those recordings, there's no indication that the president had prior knowledge of the Watergate break-in. There are several statements that the president makes, both in the transcripts and in the additions to the transcripts provided by the House Judiciary Committee, where the president indicates some degree of knowledge of what's been called the cover-up. Now, whether or not that's illegal, I don't think that as reporters, we're really not jurors. We're in the business of trying to report, not make a judgment.
Oh, that's fair. That was pretty fair.
And actually,
it was surprisingly fair from a guy, who hated Nixon's guts.
Yeah, it was shocking to me too. The other thing was I was cleaning up because it always has that hum or whatever in the background. Freaking Buckley's voice is so bass driven that one cleanup tool was dropping out words because it's like his voice screwed up.
It's hard to hear him. Yeah, even when the show was on TV, it was hard. He would go into this deep guttural, like whoa, when's that coming back? But it's a great interview. I mean, I think we ran a piece of it last week, but he has his moment, and so does Woodward.
Yeah, well, and I thought, hey, here's a good way to intro the show, an intro to Carl Bernstein via Buckley, our favorite CIA guy.
Well, we're going to use Buckley's interview of E. Howard Hunt when we do the Hunt episode, because it turns out that Buckley and Hunt are really close friends and the godfather of his children. On top of it, as he explains in the interview, to his credit, in his relationship with E. Howard Hunt, it was a really fascinating interview.
Well, cool. And obviously today we are covering the tumultuous Carl Bernstein.
I got a soft place in my heart for Carl Bernstein. I really do. I mean, he could have been me. I could have been Carl Bernstein. And there's a lot of Carl Bernstein in me. He's a juvenile delinquent. There's just so much there that I respect and despise about Carl Bernstein, and I respect and despise about myself. So it's a two-way street. I mean, this guy, he grows up in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is not Silver Springs. Apparently, there's only one Silver Spring in Maryland. It's singular, which I always get wrong. But today I'm getting it right for the autistic people, so they don't hassle me after the show. Silver Spring, Maryland. He goes to this Blair high school, but before he gets there, he looks like Howdy Doody. And for people who don't know who Howdy Doody is, he was a freckle-faced dummy that was a huge thing in the 1950s, and he is called Howdy Doody by his classmates, but he embraces it, Eric, and actually enrolls, or whatever you got to do, in Howdy Doody lookalike contests, and he wins them every time. So he doesn't just sulk about being Howdy Doody. Oh, no. He embraces the Howdy Doody.
He's a cool character. I pulled this for you. You said you got a soft spot. This will give you an even softer spot. This
okay, go ahead.
He had some moves.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Right. I'm going to explain what this is. in Maryland, first of all, he goes on a show every day called the Pick Temple Show on Channel 9. This is actually from Milt Grant's record Hop, which was the local version of American Bandstand, which he did 3 days a week. Literally came from school and went to this TV show, which was on Channel 5. Now, on Channel 9, there was another show called the Pick Temple Show. And there's a episode, I don't know if we could ever find it, but there's an episode of him on top of a pony named Piccolo. And on that pony, he's playing guitar because he was studied with Charlie Bird, one of the legendary jazz guitarists, and wanted to be a rock star. And we'll get into that a little later. But on this show on Channel 9, he plays songs to two girls. I think they may be sitting on a haystack or something. And he's on a pony serenading them, Eric. There's two young girls. So he's 9. So he's born in 1944. So it's 1953, let's say. He's 9 years old. And the two girls are a little older than him. One is the same age. And the two girls he's serenading, you can't make this up. That's why I'm just going to tell you. Tricia and Julia Nixon, the vice president's daughters, are being serenaded on this show by the man who will eventually destroy their father. This is wow. I mean, just, you want to talk about a deep dive. I found this out a couple of weeks ago, and I just was looking for the footage. I couldn't find that footage that you found. Is when he was in 8th grade. He will get kicked out of school. I think he's 13 there. He will get kicked out of school numerous times for getting violent after losing $25 in poker, smoking, drinking, gambling. This is at 13. He's kicked out of school numerous times. He's got a pool cue that breaks down into 2 pieces. He's a professional pool hustler at 13. No, dude, I love this guy. And he's a lot like Woody Allen, who also went to Midwood High School with my mother, who made believe he had a clarinet in a case, but he had a 2-piece pool cue, and he would cut school and go to a pool room and shoot pool. So, I mean, and this is really crazy because his best friend in school, again, irony of irony, was a guy named Ben Stein, who will become Nixon's
Ben Stein.
The Ben Stein, Bueller. But more importantly, Ben Stein will become Nixon's speechwriter along with Pat Buchanan. This is his best friend in school. You can't make this up. That's why I wanted to do the separate episode of the two of them, because there's no connection between Woodward and Bernstein. Alan J. Pakula, the famous director who will direct All the President's Men, interviewed both of them separately for hundreds of hours of tape and came away with the conclusion that these two men hated each other's guts.
That was what I liked about that Buckley part too, because Buckley brought that up. He said he had some issues with each other.
They did not like each other because, and we'll get into it here, he knows this city inside and out. He knows every square inch of D.C. He was meant to be, in his blood, a professional reporter and a professional journalist. There is nothing else. If Carl Bernstein did not uncover Watergate or be involved in Watergate, he still would have been a journalist his entire life. That's how much ink is in his blood. But we're not up to that point yet. So at the age of 13, he wants his parents to fit in with society. And his parents don't really fit in. And why don't his parents fit in? Well, they're members of the Communist Party. And I mean avowed members of the Communist Party. His father is the union organizer of the American Federation of Government Workers, an avowed communist. The mother's a communist. They're taking him to sit-ins. They're taking him to desegregation rallies at parents. It's so great. What was that sitcom where the kid was a Republican and his parents?
Family Ties.
This is like Family Ties. Okay. This is like Family Ties. He wants to be bar mitzvahed. He's 13, right? He's a Jew. And they go, well, we don't do that. We're atheists. We're communists. And he goes, no, please. I just want to, all his friends, including Ben Stein. By the way, who were the other two classmates in his class? You just go, well, there must have been some other people. How about somebody named Goldie Hawn? So Goldie Hawn is rolling with them. And Who else, Eric? Of course, Connie Chung, the legendary newscaster. She's there too, Connie Chung.
Wow.
So it's fucking crazy. So he wants to get bar mitzvah. He can't get bar mitzvah. His parents are atheists, and he's telling them to join a country club so they look normal. They don't want to do that. Okay, so his father, and for his job, because the union thing is just like almost a ceremonial thing, father runs a laundromat. And turns out in the 1940s, every commie who is dedicated to communism runs a laundromat. This becomes their cover, these laundromats. So his father has one, his uncle's a commie, they've got one, and it's their family, not just family business, it's business of every commie organizer in DC. So these laundromats around DC are run by communists because it's easy to run, you don't have to get involved, and you just empty the coins, you've got some money, blah, blah, blah. The poor people are washing their clothes, who the hell knows? But anyway, so he has his bar mitzvah. Who shows up to his bar mitzvah? The FBI. The FBI is on the street taking down all the license plates of all the commie relatives who had, just like with Abby Hoffman when his father died, exactly the same. When Abby Hoffman's father died in Worcester, Mass., FBI showed up to photograph, and hey, this is what they did with him. And J. Edgar Hoover, by the way, was a native of D.C., like Bernstein, and like these cave dwellers, they called themselves, because D.C. was such a transient city, Eric, that they divided socially among people who were born multi-generational. Bernstein was multi-generational D.C., going back great-grandfather level of just D.C., Eric. And they delineated in that city, because it was such a transient political city, they delineated between the political people who were coming and going, the people who were from the Midwest or wherever they came for government, and the locals, which they call cave dwellers.
Okay.
Well, that's what they called it. It's kind of funny, but he dances on these shows. He keeps getting caught up in the here's one of his hijinks, I guess. He gets involved
dancing the frug.
The frug. It was called the frug. Yeah, the frug. And the monkey. There was a bunch of these dances, and he was an amazing jitterbugger.
He won contests apparently.
Yeah. But he begins to, they begin to lose interest in him because he's very, very short. He's not only got freckles, he's also got pimples, and it's not going well. So he gets a job at the Washington Star. Now, the Washington Star is bigger than the Washington Post, and he's just a copy boy. But the reason they hire him at the Washington Star is they all know his father, who's got tons of articles in the paper, in the files, because his father, they looked at the Washington Post as a bullshit newspaper, and the Washington Star really covered crime and really covered D.C. far more than the so-called liberal Washington Post. The Star was not. The Star was the favorite newspaper of J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover had friends there. When he wanted to plant a story, he would use the Star. So he gets a job there as a copy boy, and it's the greatest thing that ever happened to him on the face of the earth. It's one of these things where you know what your future is going to be, no matter what's going to happen. He knows his life is going to be as a newspaper person. And they take him under his wing. He goes out and he buys a 3-piece suit that is like light tan. He gets a suit. He gets a couple $100. He sells an article, and he puts on this suit, and he's going to be a copy boy. And the place is really hustling and bustling. So they tell him, look, we have to use a lot of carbon paper here. And at night, when we're done at 5 o'clock, you have to take all the carbon paper into the men's room and wash it with soap and water so we can reuse it. He goes, okay, I'm down. I'll do it. And this is one of their phony tricks, Eric, a ball-busting thing.
Like the left-handed wrench. And
the left-handed wrench. So he's in there washing the he doesn't know what's going on. He's washing the carbon paper, and who comes in? The editor-in-chief, and loses his mind. Not at him so much as like, these pieces of shit, when are they going to stop with this stupid stunt? He's going, what? And they're going, "You're an idiot. You're stupid." He starts screaming at Bernstein for being duped by this. But what does he know? He's 16 years old and they're busting his balls. You know what I mean? So anyway, he begins to go around the city and cover stuff where they literally send him. This is 1960, 61. They sent him to JFK press conferences. This I don't know.
That's a city editor, so probably
okay. It could have been him, but he gets sent to crime scenes. He gets sent to be the guy who will phone in the story, not his story. He's phoning it in for somebody who finds a dead body with the police. There are guys who are in the police station who just work for the Star, who never leave the police station. They never even write an article. They phone in the article going, "Stop, 32-year-old white male, stop." And they never write anything. There was one guy there, he said, who never left the police station, never typed an article. And he had taken a typing class. And this is important. He had taken a typing class, Bernstein, in high school when he was 16 years of age. And he mastered typing. So when he goes for this job, they gave him copy to go into a room and copy. And he comes out in 2 minutes and he goes, "Here you go, chief." And he goes, "What?" And he looks at it and it's effing perfect. He typed
job
this thing.
Security.
Total job security. He could do this, and he was faster than the secretaries. So when you see in the movie, and not only that, he could write, and that was the genius of Carl Bernstein. He was able. I don't know. I can't. This is
the copy area, the newsroom, etc., where he's typing.
Right. So that's a machine with there was like a telegraph version of the news. There was a UPI version. I mean, things are changing very rapidly at this time in news. But he is so excited about being there that he'll work any hours. He's going around. He's watching them melt the lead type to put the newspaper, when they're printing the paper, how they literally melt lead to form the typed letters to print the paper. He's just fascinated and
that's where they come up with leading as a spacing mechanism.
Right. And also using the word lead, LEDE, as the first paragraph of an article, not to be confused with lead, LEAD. The word lead comes to differentiate lead from lead, just a separate issue. But anyway, so he is caught washing the carbon, and he has another habit. He borrows money from everyone, never pays them back. This goes on into adult life. He'll borrow $5, $5,000, $50. Another one of these juvenile delinquent things that he does. He comes in hungover. He stays out all night. He goes out with these grown men. He goes out with these grown men. He's 16 years old. They take him to Baltimore, to the Gaiety Burlesque Theater in Baltimore, to see their favorite stripper, a woman named Chili Pepper. And this is a 6-year-old boy, but he's going with like these 60-year-old men, who have taken him under their wing, to teach him every part of the business, including going to Baltimore to strip clubs for, whatever reason. But he's getting $29 a week, which I guess is a lot of money back then. But he types literally 90 words per minute. 90 words per minute. And he's not cheating. He's not pecking. He's not doing this,
Right.
But he refuses. He refuses a job at the Washington Post in 1960 because the Washington Post, tortured his parents as communists. And there's articles in the Washington Post about his parents. His parents are not minor communists, by the way. They are big-time commies. He'll later write a book about it, his memoir, about his parents. They did not want him to do that. He's embarrassed that they're communists. He is not a communist, which is a compliment, I guess. At least he's not a communist. How about that?
It probably didn't help him with Woodward later, though.
No, I know.
With his parents, and that would be some oil and water automatically.
I know, it's so weird, but he's making, even at the Washington Post. Now, keep in mind, he is a pure journalist. Woodward knows nothing about journalism. This kid has been doing this since he was 16. He's 29 years old when he's at the Washington Post. He's doing this what Woodward started 9 months before, Bernstein's doing for 13 years. Drops out of school, goes and gets a job in Elizabeth, New Jersey at the Elizabeth Daily Journal. He leaves the Star finally after I think 5 or 6 years. Him and an editor both go to the Elizabeth, New Jersey, go up north, and he's able to go into New York and do shit in New York. And the kid from Silver Spring, Maryland, I guess that's pretty hot. But he won first prize in a reporting story, so he got to get to some credit up there. And that's how he gets the job at the Washington Post. He wins an award at the Elizabeth Daily Journal, which is some local newspaper in Elizabeth, I guess. But Elizabeth, for those who are not around, is borders on Newark, and nighttime ain't no time to be in Newark. The next town is Elizabeth. Elizabeth is just completely saturated by industrial pollution and all kinds of crazy factories and everything else. I once went to a girl's house who went to college with us. We went there, we were out of school. We went down to her parents' house, and her mother was making us dinner in Elizabeth, and she had to close the window to keep the pollution out. This was I swear to God, this was not to keep actual visual fog or smog from coming in the window of the kitchen. But I digress. He's over there. He doesn't know Woodward. He's never met Woodward. He's covered all kinds of stories. Now, he's also a thorn in the side of Ben Bradlee, who, again, hates his effing guts. Ben Bradlee fires him every week, can't stand Bernstein. Bernstein will literally put his cigarettes out on the rug to avoid his own desk and the papers from catching on fire. Okay, so he'll just think about that. So the whole rug surrounding his desk, he takes 2 desks, puts them together, makes a ping pong table out of them. So he's that guy in the office. Bradlee hates his guts, but he can't fire him because the Writers Guild, the newspaper guild, every time he goes to fire him, they back him up and they go, no. And Bradlee tells him straight up, he goes, if it wasn't for that guild, I would have fired you 50 times already. He just hates his guts. But Bradlee admits 2 things. He can write and he works his ass off. And that's the only 2 things that Bradlee likes him for, which are important, if you're the editor-in-chief, Ben Bradlee.
Sure.
But he's also, he's a guy, he's influenced by Kerouac, he's influenced by different beat writers, and he starts to write record reviews of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, of the Rolling Stones for the Washington Post. This is before Watergate. He's writing album and record reviews and concert reviews in a Rolling Stone kind of way. He writes to Jan Wenner saying, I want a job as the political editor of the Rolling Stone. And Jan Wenner writes back saying, we have this guy, Hunter Thompson. He goes, I don't give a shit. He goes, I want that job. Jan Wenner says, I don't think it's going to work, son. And so he gets turned down by Jan Wenner, but ambition is not his shortfall. And he is a great writer, and he writes in an Allen Ginsberg, Kerouac style, not with these stories about, man killed by car, but in these other stories where he goes out on his own and he'll write about racism in a neighborhood. He'll write about the chief of police who will not hire a woman who's a sergeant, and he blackmails the captain at this station, saying, I'll reveal your entire pornography collection. He's involved in these protests. Yeah, but he's writing about it too, and he's writing it as prose and not in a journalistic style.
Yeah, this is from his book, and I think it's about the segregation stuff at the time. He was involved.
Super segregated city, by the way. I mean, massively segregated. And his parents took him to these things. Stokely Carmichael deserved to be segregated.
Well, those are his sources.
Yeah. I don't know who Fontenoy is, but Stokely Carmichael, certainly. I mean, D.C. will eventually burn to the ground during these riots that are about to occur. But I mean, the point of the matter is, if you wanted to read a great review, find his review of Iron Butterfly, because it is. Never mind, even if you don't like Iron Butterfly, the point of the matter is, he knows how to write, and he writes a review, which I remember reading it years ago, about Iron Butterfly and a bunch of other bands. He is what was called then the new journalism, if that means anything. That's Tom Wolfe. That's Kerouac. It's all. I mean, Hunter Thompson. Not so much Kerouac, but guys who wrote in media from that period of time were called new journalists, and that's what he wanted to be, and essentially was. But it doesn't really fit in at a paper like the Washington Post. It fits in at a magazine. Fits in at Cream. It fits in at Rolling Stone. It fits in at Spin. It fits in at those type of periodicals.
This is his review of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Pull quote from it. With Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Her Majesty's knights in psychedelic armor come to rescue the form, creating the first pop-tone poem.
Wow.
So,
that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, that's
good
how
turn of phrase.
Yeah, no. That's what kept him alive, was his ability to write. And eventually when he does make the money that he's going to make from the movie and the book. By the way, Woodward said that the book, All the President's Men, was 95% written by Bernstein.
Shocking.
Yeah, no, because and you see it in the movie, like he pulls his copy and he says, this, I could punch this up for you. And he does it at lightning speed. And Woodward or Robert Redford says, I agree, it needs work. I just don't like the way you did it behind my back. But in that phrase, in that scene, you see both the sneaky little, Dustin Hoffman character, and you see the ability to write at lightning speed, which is what you need for journalism. By the way, it was not supposed to be Dustin Hoffman playing this part. It was an old friend of mine, which I just found out about it. A guy who played C.W. Moss in Bonnie and Clyde, Michael J. Pollard, was supposed to be the Carl Bernstein character. I did not know that. I mean, you see Dustin Hoffman now, who they also tried to get for Heartburn, the Nora Ephron novel about her breakup with Carl Bernstein, which we'll get to in a second. But I mean, his career, obviously when he does Watergate, people think that he's a god among men because he's taken down the president of the United States. And that's why, he's on firing line with William F. Buckley, but they're on Meet the Press every week. They're on every single show had them on there, Eric. The book comes out even before Nixon resigns, which is kind of weird. They get the book deal before it comes out, before the end of the story.
That's interesting.
Yeah. People don't realize that he's still in office when the book ends.
So I guess second edition. Oh, by the way.
Well, the second edition becomes The Final Days, which had the two of them wrote that, and Woodward said that he didn't help him at all. And that was the end of their relationship because he was already partying like it was 1999, Bernstein. He does not help him in The Final Days, but Al Haig does help him because the only guy there to give him sources is 296 or 200. Oh, I take that back. 394 unnamed sources in that book. One of the craziest books of all time. 394 unnamed sources telling us about Nixon's final days in the White House. And we're supposed to...
Sounds like the introduction to modern journalism of now. Because
yes.
How many unnamed sources do we have now?
Yes.
Was that the start of this?
Absolutely not that book, but Watergate itself and All the President's Men is the start of it. The whole controversy about Deep Throat is the start of it. The whole fact that Bradley is eventually told who it is and never tells anyone. The fact that Bernstein lies repeatedly. In other words, in the book, Bernstein says to avoid a subpoena that's coming from the White House, he's told by Ben Bradley to go to the movies, and he goes and sees Deep Throat and comes up with the name Deep Throat. Well, other journalists did some research, and Deep Throat was not playing in DC at the time. So he lied about that. There's a scene where they're walking in the rain, where they're defeated, they're dejected. Somebody looked that up. That was a lie. It wasn't raining. The stuff we covered with the flower pot, the New York Times, which I still stand by, that they just dumped these papers in the lobby of a incredibly high security building, that I doubt that Mark Felt went there every day to deliver a New York Times newspaper, or to go into the center of the buildings to look up at his flower pot to see if it was out. These were all literary devices. These are all made up literary devices by Carl Bernstein, who you could tell that it's his writing, that he's making this crap up, for dramatic effect.
Well, talented writer. At least
and it becomes a movie, and he cashes in, and eventually he literally quits the Washington Post. He quits everything, takes the millions, and he goes to New York, and he hooks up with Nora Ephron. I mean, that's kind of an interesting matchup. They become these celebrity couple of New York, and he's not from New York. So now he's got millions of dollars. Here's Nora Ephron, who by the way, passed away a number of years ago without telling anyone that she was dying of cancer, which is kind of interesting, because there's a documentary you can watch on HBO. Everything is Copy, I think it's called, and it's directed by her son, Jacob, who is the Carl Bernstein of the New York Times today. People may have missed this. There he is on the left. That's one of his two sons. We'll get to the other son a little while, but this one did a documentary. I think he directed it. It was on HBO like last year or this year or something.
Well, yeah, it looks like the premiere. This picture's taken from.
Right. Okay. So Bernstein will now begin the party phase of Bernstein's life. And I mean party. Spy Magazine, which was a pop culture magazine in New York, a nonfiction magazine, would follow him. They would have a Bernstein alert in the magazine every week of sightings of Carl Bernstein as a joke, because here he is with Bianca Jagger. He gets into so many different dating things, but this is after Nora Ephron. He hooks up with Nora Ephron, and they get married, and they have these two kids. And as she's giving birth, he's already found a mistress.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Okay. So this is so crazy what he does. He is the toast of the town. They go out every night. These are the literary couple of all time. Every single gossip columnist writes about the two of them every single day. The New York Daily News, New York Post. What was Bernstein and Nora Ephron wearing? Where were they?
Didn't she write Sleepless in Seattle?
Of course, right.
A major writer. Okay. Yeah.
No, dude. She's a mega. And then the screenplays too. I mean, these were novels. She wrote a thing called When Harry Met Sally. How about that one?
That's right.
I mean, she also wrote this thing called Heartburn and a bunch of other stuff as a novelist, and then she became a screenwriter and then a director. An incredible career of Nora Ephron. She's got multiple sisters, and Meryl Streep will play her in the movie version of The Marriage to Carl Bernstein. Carl Bernstein is played. They wanted to get Dustin Hoffman, but Hoffman said, I can't keep playing the same guy. So they got some other obscure guy named Jack Nicholson, who was used. Yeah, so he's played by Jack Nicholson. No, but I'm saying, imagine how fat your head is when Jack Nicholson plays you in one movie and Dustin Hoffman plays you in another movie. I mean, it's crazy.
Didn't Pacino play him too in one thing?
No, I don't.
Okay, I thought so.
No.
Right.
But anyway, so what happens is, as she's giving birth, he's already hooked up. The movie comes out in 86, but the novel, I think, is like 81 or 82. He's already hooked up with a I don't even know how to tell you this. A woman named Margaret J. They say, who's Margaret J? Margaret J was the wife of Peter J. Peter Jay was the United States ambassador from England to the United States. Here's this couple right here. Margaret on the bottom also did BBC and NPR. Her father was the Prime Minister of England, a cat named James Callaghan, to our British friends across the pond. They all know about this in the UK. Nobody remembers this in the United States because it was so crazy. And it was 1978 when this affair starts. And it is an affair that is even discussed in the morning, like on Good Morning America every day. That's how out this thing is. And
Wow.
she's pregnant with another kid, Max, the next kid, and she's already got Jacob, and he's banging the Prime Minister's daughter and talking about getting a house with her. Dude, it's so out there that everyone in society, in the social world, turns their back on Carl Bernstein. The only guy who will stand by him grudgingly is Bob Woodward, just so he has a connection to the outside world. But everyone hates his guts because everyone loves Nora Ephron. And Nora Ephron did not deserve the treatment by this guy who starts dating Elizabeth Taylor. He gets a house out in Sag Harbor. I once got a house myself, a rental, and the house had no heat. It was a summer house in Sag Harbor. He gets a house for a number of months. She sends him out to Kmart in the middle of the night to get electric blankets so they could have sex because there was no heat in the house. That's Elizabeth Taylor and Carl Bernstein. That was Bianca Jagger and Carl Bernstein. He is a complete sex addict. He has to have X amount of women every single day, or he can't function.
And he gets them though. That is kind of remarkable. I'm sorry, he's not a handsome fellow.
No, but charming is all hell. He had super duper charm, and he dates Katharine Graham's daughter-in-law, the owner of the Washington Post. He dates Faye Waddleton, who was the obscure woman, president of an organization called Planned Parenthood. Dude, he has so many high-profile girlfriends that it's crazy. This is Katharine Graham right there, the owner of the Washington Post, because Phil Graham, along with a guy named Wisner, will both self-delete because of reasons we're going to get into in a little while. The husband of Katharine Graham, 1963, right before the Kennedy assassination, which connects this to the Kennedy assassination. Thank you for coming by today. The Phil Graham deletion is part of this storyline because you're going to see why. He begins to get a house with Nora Ephron. This is, even despite these affairs, they take $250,000 of his Watergate money and buy an estate in Bridgehampton, Long Island, one of the Hamptons out there, big estate with a barn in the back that's converted to his office. And he's going to write a book called Progressive People about his parents. And it's going to be the greatest book on the McCarthy era of all time. He's going to vindicate his parents. This is kind of like the Rosenbergs deal. He knows his parents are commies, but he believes that they were targeted by Nixon because of Alger Hiss. It all goes back to Nixon and Alger Hiss. That's why he was going after Nixon. Ben Bradley, to his credit, repeatedly, despite the intro piece of tape that you showed with Buckley, Ben Bradley, to his credit, continues to delete Bernstein's references to Nixon knew this, Nixon knew that, Nixon knew this. He had no factual evidence of that, and he kept trying to sneak it into every article. And Bradley, to his credit, kept saying, you have no evidence of this. I can't put this in. It's the president of the United States, son. And some of that is in the movie, but Bradley had to do it all the time because of Bernstein's hatred of Nixon, because of Alger Hiss and Whittaker Chambers and the targeting of his own parents. This was revenge from day effing one.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Anyway, so he's doing this British woman who is her husband doesn't care. They go to these dinner parties at his house. He's a young guy. He used to be a journalist. He reveres Carl Bernstein. He knows Bernstein's banging his wife, and they don't care. It's astounding. And he says, we're not getting broken up over this, but the Efron and Bernstein are. That's for sure, but not the British couple. The British couple looks at it like, it's a bloody fling. Who cares? And they just shove it off. They don't care. They may have been working for MI6, which is probably what I think was going on, that there was some deep state activity on the part of the British, that this was a honey trap to get Bernstein and information and sources out of Bernstein, which is what she did. She also worked for the BBC. So I think there was more to this affair on their side than there was. I mean, what husband is going to go ahead, honey, it's fine. Yeah, go keep doing the good work that you're doing. And he used to be a journalist, and now he was 40 years old, the youngest, and the cats in the UK know who I'm talking about. This guy was the youngest ambassador to the United States in England's history. And people in the media in England were not happy about this guy, Peter Jay, the husband. But I believe MI6. That's right. So you got that going on. Now they've got this house out there, and he's supposed to write this novel or nonfiction book about his parents. He researches it, drinks, parties, can't stay out there in the woods. It's too lonely. He has to go to New York to party, and he writes 30 pages of the book and completely gives up. It will later somehow surface as his memoir years later, which got really bad reviews. And that talks about his commie parents. I think that was the book, which is also nonfiction about his parents and how he got to where he is.
Was it this one, Chasing History?
No, that's a newer one. There's one called, hold on for a second. Let me see if I can find this thing here. Hold on.
All right. Very quick rifling through the bookshelves. What do we have here? New member, LRRP FCO 52. Thank you very, very much. And Mary S. has gifted a American Untold Stories membership. Thank you very much, Mary. By the way, while Mark is away, those of you who were at the West Palm Beach meetup, please be on the lookout for an email coming to you to collect some more information for things that we'll be sending out to you over time.
Sorry about that. I got it. I found it. It's called, here it is, Loyalties, A Son's Memoir. This was the book he was going to write in their Bridgehampton estate. However, the divorce leads to one of the largest media divorces in New York City's history. So the divorce is put in a novel by Nora Ephron called Heartburn. And it's thinly veiled, but very thinly veiled, about her cheating, disgusting rat of a husband. And dude, it is just crazy. I mean, the audiobook is great because it's read by Meryl Streep, who will play her in the movie. So ladies, if you want to have a good time, listen to the audiobook. If a man has ever cheated on you and you're a woman in this audience, you may enjoy the audiobook version read by Meryl Streep of Heartburn. Anyway, she talks about the kids and this and that, and the book comes out and it immediately gets bought as a movie because it's Nora Ephron. So they go to make the movie, they go to get divorced, and the divorce lawyers are now negotiating what can or cannot go into this movie. He doesn't want the kids in the movie, the two boys. He doesn't want his name. It just goes on and on and on, watering down the film. And when the film finally comes out, it's really this flaccid, not a very good film. The novel is fine, but the film is just a piece of crap. Very hard to get through, despite Mike Nichols, despite Jack Nicholson, despite Meryl Streep. It's just been too savaged. And he says to the media, he says, I'm going to Liz, what's her name, the gossip columnist, I'm going to destroy this film. It's the last thing I do. And he does do that.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, he has burned through At this point, $3 million in 1970s money, Eric.
Oof.
Okay. And he's got to give, like, in the divorce settlement, he's got to pay alimony. He's got to pay stuff for the kids' schools, the camp, and all the regular stuff, because basically they're both freelance writers. You know, essentially at this point, I mean, he's not working for anybody. He gets a job. He gets a job working for ABC News. Roone Arledge and Ted Koppel, and they hire him to be the Washington bureau chief. And he believes that he's going to be an investigative journalist who investigates things that get on TV. They don't give a shit about that. They just are a bunch of star fuckers, and they want Carl Bernstein to be part of TV. He doesn't know anything about TV. He doesn't know how it works. He thinks it's the same. He becomes a laughing stock at ABC News. They go, son, you don't know what you're doing. This is not what happens. We just want you to do this on-air stuff. Ted Koppel tries to help him. He's terrible, terrible, Eric. And they're paying him $150,000 a year, which again is 1979, $150,000.
It's still pretty good money.
It's good money, but he has burned his style of living. Let me just put it this way, is large. It's just large. And he, you know, he's dating. If you're going out with Bianca Jagger and Elizabeth Taylor, which is what he's doing now, working at ABC News in New York. I mean, she's 12 years older than him, Liz, but he doesn't care. He gets fired very quickly, like after a year or two, year and a half at ABC News. I don't think he lasted through the early 80s. I think it lasted like 1 year or something. But the point of the matter is, in 1977, 2 years before that, he completes his masterpiece. And when I say masterpiece, everybody has a masterpiece. And his masterpiece is written by him, and this is what people love him for Rolling Stone as a freelance writer. He wrote a 22,000 word piece, and I've written 22,000 word pieces. That was what I used to write when I was at the LA Weekly. Those are huge, huge pieces that take months. And this one took him months also. But that's what put him on the map for the counterculture. And it's called CIA and the Media. And Carl Bernstein wrote this, and I think it was why all of the drinking and all of the partying was because he sold his soul to the devil. And the CIA and the Media article was his redemption. I think he felt that he was a fraud, and he was a fraud. This article will live forever. It is the complete details of Operation Mockingbird, naming names of every publication in the country, every TV station, every network, every publisher, naming names of the people who were working for the CIA and the Media, the history of Operation Mockingbird. It's one of the greatest articles, and everybody knows this article, CIA and the Media. We could post it later on Locals if you want to take a look at it and read it. It's an unbelievable article, and I think, I have no evidence of this, I think a lot of the source material came from Woodward trying to help reestablish the reputation of Carl Bernstein. And I think that this was Woodward's gift to him as a gift to help his career. Not that it helps his career in regular straight literary circles, but in countercultural circles, it makes him a rock star because it's Rolling Stone. It's a piece that has lived forever. It's a huge piece, and it's named a lot of people in that piece in 1977. You could still look at that piece today and look at the names of the people in there. Richard Helms, a former UPI correspondent who becomes head of the CIA, Sulzberger at the New York Times, Stuart Alsop and his brother, William Paley at CBS, C.D. Jackson at Life, Henry Luce at Time Magazine, Claire Booth Luce, the wife, all CIA, all working with the agency. And the reason that Bernstein did it was that it put legitimate, and this argument has been made by others besides Bernstein, it put legitimate journalists at harm's way, because the people who were kidnapping them, killing them, doing stuff overseas, perceived every American journalist to be a CIA asset, a proprietary asset, a media asset. And to their credit, the journalists pushed back. CIA didn't give a fuck. The CIA said, tough luck. This is what we're doing. So it became an awkward thing where you had people writing books outing other CIA media assets. Philip Agee wrote his book, and Marchetti wrote his book, actually naming names of assets because of this particular issue, that legitimate journalists were now being lumped in with CIA assets, both domestically and overseas. And to his credit, Bernstein goes into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for having written one of the most definitive pieces and exposés in the history of Central Intelligence Agency, CIA and the media.
We might have taken a little bit from that with our CIA and the media episode, right?
Yeah, well, everybody has. I mean, it's the Bible. It's the Bible. I mean, that's where it starts with Bernstein. So not only is he's a maniac, but he pulls this piece of gold out of his ass, and who gives a shit about these other books about his parents and all that other stuff? Loyalties, a son's memoir. Nobody cares about that. Nobody. You know, we mentioned all those books that Woodward wrote. He never had a bestseller. He never did that, Bernstein, ever again. That never happened for him. That's not who he was. This guy was a pure 100% ink in his veins newspaper man, and for better or for worse. And you can see certain movies about that. Front Page, I think. There's certain movies that have been made about newspaper guys. But he's not done. He's not done, Bernstein. He begins to, how do I put this? Drink and drive. And he had a 5-speed 1977 Toyota Corolla, which I used to have too. 3:15 in the morning, I think it's 1983, July 14th. He's in a high-speed pursuit with DC police going through Washington, D.C. On a drunken spree, being chased by Washington police, who don't know who he is, but he's out of his mind. Crashes into a guy named Dr. Franklin Musgrave, a doctor, regular doctor, who's got a Mercedes, injures Musgrave with his lower discs are injured. Musgrave in civil court sues ABC News and Bernstein for $3 million in damages to his body, loss of work and services and blah, 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 his car and blah, blah, blah. So now everyone hates Bernstein's guts. He's now injured a medical doctor in a high-speed pursuit, ends up in jail by the two cops who will later testify in the civil suit that Bernstein, who shows up hours late, disappears for depositions, doesn't even make it to the depositions at one point. So again, who comes to the rescue? There's a guy named Bob Woodward, shows up and says, bro, we got to take you in. And he's taken in an intervention. It's very, very low key, to a place called Sibley Hospital in Washington, D.C. He's put into the psych ward, the mental case ward. He's also assigned a therapist, again, through the help of Woodward, finds him a high profile therapist. And he's in Sibley Hospital for weeks, either detoxing or getting meds or kicking or whatever the hell he's doing in there. He's in there for a long time because Woodward was visiting him in the hospital. So this intervention, I think, by Woodward may have saved his life at this point. Like
It is an interesting relationship that they started out hating each other, but obviously grew over time.
Well, it's like guys who had been to battle before. You know what I mean? Like they've been to war. They don't necessarily love each other, but there's a lot of mutual respect. And I'll tell you something else. The intervention starts with a meeting of Bradley, Woodward, and the other editor of the Washington Post saying, we have to save this guy's life for the good and reputation of the Washington Post. So their motives may not have been so puritanical. Bradley says we can't have this guy melting down. And I think it was a cry for help by Bernstein that I'm going to just keep going until somebody stops me from doing this, which is typical of a lot of alcoholics and addicts. You know what I mean? But again, getting back to Frank Wisner, who will off himself, Wisner's Wurlitzer is a book you could read about how Frank Wisner was involved in Operation Mockingbird, one of the top CIA guys. He offs himself, as does, or deletes, self-deletes, as does Phil Graham, famously melting down at a newspaper convention and then being sent to a mental institution in D.C. He will get, there's Phil Graham. He was the #1 advisor to LBJ. He came up with LBJ's Great Society. He invented the phrase Great Society. He told LBJ what programs. He invented those programs for LBJ. So he was a friend of JFK's. He didn't make it past 1963 in November for reasons that may be that he knew too much. But that's how Catherine Graham ends up with the Washington Post, Eric. Because of the self-deletion of her husband, Phil. And then Don, I think, is their son, who will end up, if I remember, the son, I think, ends up running the paper after her. But in 1990, Bernstein gets a job for $20,000 an article at Time Magazine, Eric. And he gets fired in 1991. Turns in, yeah, no.
He doesn't have a good record there.
No. He gets fired in 1991, and he says, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a job teaching at the Columbia School of Journalism, right up there in Upper Manhattan." And they go, "No, you can't work here." The most famous journalist in the world is turned down by the Columbia School of Journalism, who back then set the ethical standards for journalism. Now, keep in mind, both he and Woodward are grilled in that episode by William F. Buckley about their incredible attempt to interrogate and interview the grand jurors in the Watergate case, the Watergate grand jury. And the member of the grand jury was so outraged that he went to Judge Sirica and ratted out Bernstein and Woodward for attempting to violate federal law by interviewing a secret grand jury member. Sirica claims in his book that he castigated the two of them, but Liddy claims in his book that he never mentioned their names in open court, and that is true. He never does. And Edward Bennett Williams, the lawyer for the Washington Post and friend of John Sirica, will come and talk to Sirica about not putting Woodward and Bernstein in jail. And Woodward and Bernstein violated federal law massively by going around the system and interviewing secret grand jurors, Eric.
You want to play that clip?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, all right. Go ahead.
You did everything you could to get the grand jurors to speak to you so that roughly speaking, you had equal access to information.
We describe that in the book.
Yeah,
in this sort of, to stray over to that topic for a moment, that in writing how the process worked, we decided, it was really Carl's idea, that we had to strip ourselves bare and explain for the first time that we had contacted some grand jurors in an attempt to get information. We did not get any information from the grand jurors, and describe at some length in the book the process of that, and being called before Judge Sirica and not being named publicly as we expected, and then engaging in our own cover-up with our colleagues in the news media and refusing to identify ourselves as the unidentified members of the news media that Judge Sirica had alluded to in open court.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal at the time because the Nixon people were howling. Now, again, going after his Nixon insanity, one of the things he adds into the final days, which really, really upset the Nixon people and his family, was a scurrilous, unproven allegation that Pat Nixon had not had sexual relations with her husband for 14 years. And that was Bernstein's cheap shot at the Nixon family. It was unforgivable. And they will never, ever forgive Bernstein for that. That being said, with the CIA book, the 400 American journalists that Bernstein outs in the Rolling Stone piece, the CIA and the media, he goes into incredible detail, quoting CIA sources. Now, this could have come from Woodward, saying that one journalist is worth 20 CIA agents. That was a quote from the CIA, from his source. Did you hear that, by the way? Okay. There was like a bell that went off on my computer. Anyway, so columnists and commentators and all these other people that are on their watch, the reality of it is, here he is admitting breaking federal law, trying to interrogate and trying to get this secret grand juror to tell us that, and documents from the grand jury, and they got caught. And Sirica, everyone believed that the case should have been thrown out, not unlike the case we're seeing today in New York. It was very similar to what was going on. Sirica was a megalomaniacal madman, and he wasn't going to throw it out, and he wouldn't even mention their names in open court. And the journalists said, who the hell did this? And they knew it was Woodward and Bernstein. They knew it was Woodward and Bernstein. Anyway, wow. In 2003, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. He's broke again, and Woodward's not broke because he's got all those bestsellers. He's got The Brethren, he's got Veil, he's got, you know, all the stuff.
And fewer bad personal habits, probably.
And no bad personal habits compared to
that really helps a lot.
That helps a lot. Yeah. And I'm talking about Schmecky Wecky. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this. You know, he's got them all. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I've been there myself. But in 2003, he was going to donate his papers, his Watergate papers, Woodward, to his school, which was Yale. And Bernstein says, that's not going to help me, bro. And he goes, what? He says, yeah, we got to sell them. He goes, sell them to who? He goes, the University of Texas in Austin, I found out through my attorney, is willing to pay $5 million for the papers, Watergate papers. So, oh, yeah. So they get 2.5 mil each, brokered by their mutual attorneys. Woodward donates his to his foundation, his nonprofit, but Bernstein parties like it's 1999, which is only 4 years before. So he goes crazy again. He's now got 2.5 million, and he never pays anybody back. He's borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars from high-profile people. He would get here's his MO. He would be at a place like at Mary Lou's downtown where I was, and I saw him partying back then. I saw him around. Everybody did. He would meet a guy, some big business guy, who would give him his card. And the next morning, he'd call the guy up and go, hey, I met you last night. It's Carl Bernstein. He goes, oh, that was great. What a great conversation. He goes, yeah, I wish I could remember it. Could you loan me $10,000, by the way? And the guy goes, well, okay. You're going to pay me back? He goes, yeah, of course. I'm Carl Bernstein. He did this over and over and over again.
Wow.
Anyway, he thought Nixon was Hitler. He thought George Bush was Hitler. And he thinks that Donald Trump is Hitler. All three of them can't be Hitler. The fact of the matter is he has one of the craziest cases of Trump derangement syndrome of all time. And he has gone on the record, worse than Watergate comes out of his mouth every 5 seconds. And he took that money and started to do what he had to do, right? So I want to tell you this. In 2012, this is how desperate this guy is for money. 2012, he got $12,000 to speak at the Waldorf Astoria, and he speaking fee, the $12,000, and it was from a group called Mujahideen al-Khaliq, a terrorist group on the terrorist watch list. And he says, I'm here as an advocate for free speech. And he takes the $12,000 and he doesn't even know who these people are. They're terrorists on the terrorist watch list from Iran. And that's why I thought it was contemporary. I thought it would be fitting. 2 months later, Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, removes Mujahideen al-Khaliq from the terrorist watch list. So it was very effective. He compared it to his parents being on a communist watch list to justify the taking of the 12 grand.
You know
by
how
the way.
cheap that was to get him
Yeah.
off the list? That's disgusting. I mean, he should have at least got 12 million. I mean, good God.
Well, there were, I hate to say it, but there were other people who were also there taking the money. Dennis Hastert was there taking the money. Attorney General Michael Mukasey was there taking the money. Patrick Kennedy, a Democratic congressman, was there taking the money. And a Republican mayor named Rudy Giuliani was there taking the money. So the money was spread around as lobbyists for this particular cause, and then Hillary Clinton removed them from the watch list. And this is kind of where this stuff starts. You know, it starts obviously with the Iranian hostages, but the amount of money being spread around by these cats goes back to the mid 2000s.
That's when Obama sent them pallets of cash.
Yeah, and had a great quote. He said his goal in journalism is not to betray any basis, but report the truth. Not to betray any biases, but to report the truth. That's his mantra as a journalist. And then he goes off on Fox News saying how it's not a news source at all. And I'm just going like, well, you may not agree with every story, but I mean, it looks like a news organization. It has a huge budget. It has reporters that have gone back and forth to other organizations. It smells like a news organization. The group is called MEK, by the way, if anybody wants to look it up, how Bernstein helped to get them off the terrorist watch list, and continues to say that Trump will be a dictator even now if he's reelected. You know what I mean?
So that Keith Olbermann can go hang out together, right?
Right, but Keith Olbermann does not have the gravitas that a Carl Bernstein has, or the history of being there in that area, And the last thing I want to close with is Watergate journalist Carl Bernstein spoke. Yeah, there it is. ProPublica is where I originally found that story. So yeah, that's pretty accurate by ProPublica. But his son, there's another son, which I love, named Max Bernstein. Now, Max brilliantly said, I ain't going to get involved in this thing. I'm going to find a low-level band, some artist, and I'm going to latch onto her. I'm just going to play guitar in her band. Who knows how long we'll tour. Here's a picture of Max Bernstein. What's that?
Looks like he's on bass here.
Yeah, but he's a guitar player for her and her band, and there's some photos you may see of her. Yeah. Maybe we could show a couple of them. Who he works for, the boss, which is kind of funny.
Well,
I mean, this is a pop
culture. With him and the family,
right? That's his third wife on the left. That's the son on the far left. This is the third wife who used to be a supermodel, and then on the right is an obscure
contemporary artist.
Taylor over there on the right. Oh, here they are. I think that's him right there in between, right? Yeah. Taylor Swift. Her guitar player is Max Bernstein. This story on Carl Bernstein has enough pop culture in it to keep me going for weeks. So much from me as a pop culture junkie, with the CIA, rock and roll, Rolling Stone, Taylor Swift, Nixon, Woodward. I mean, it's just so Nora Ephron, whose movies are quite enjoyable, as cotton candy. And look, I like Meg Ryan, who just as much as anybody else. But what a incredible life this guy has had.
Well, he could play guitar himself, right?
This is, like I said earlier, this is Charlie Bird, B-Y-R-D, not to be confused with Charlie Bird Parker. Also, this guy's from Washington, D.C. Charlie Bird had a jazz trio. This is one of his albums, a lot of albums. He was Carl's guitar teacher. In fact, Carl could play piano. He can imitate Elvis. He can, he could sing and play, do everything. Probably in a perfect world, wanted to be in the music business as a music guy.
A rock star.
Yeah, like a miniature rock star. But had chops. He really had chops, and he was he was one of these overachieving Jewish kids. But that crew with Ben Stein, I mean, the statements that Ben Stein has made about Carl Bernstein that are just great, because he doesn't believe there was a deep throat. he just thinks there's Bernstein, who I've met before. He lives in Malibu. We have encountered each other, Bernstein and I.
He had an awesome show too. That
Yes.
When Bernstein's money.
Yes.
That was great.
Yes, but also comic. He's got the craziest career, Bernstein. I mean, from Nixon speechwriter to movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, to MTV shows, to being an chief economic advisor. I could talk.
He's got like James Woods IQ.
No, bro. I could talk to Bernstein forever. You know, just a fantastically interesting guy. Also has a house in Idaho or Iowa somewhere, but he lives in Malibu.
Wow. Insane.
By the way, I found out there's a scene in the Library of Congress in All the President's Men, and one of the background extras is Ted Kennedy.
Great.
No, there's just too much pop culture to go around here.
Tie it all together.
Yeah, it's all tied together by Carl Bernstein.
Amazing. Well, we got some super chats to jump in and take us out. Trey Ellswick came in hot with $50.
Ellswick? What the hell's going on, Ellswick? Hold on. Go ahead, read that.
Question. Do you believe Bernstein went with Watergate to avenge his parents, or does Bernstein know of Woodward's connections to Haig, or is this just good journalism?
It's all three. I think it's all three. To answer your question, to be fair, I think it's all three. He smelled a great story. He hated Nixon because of his parents. And there's stuff with Woodward. You know, Woodward basically did these sit-down interviews. But the articles were written by Bernstein, and Bernstein, I don't think, got involved in any of the chicanery or dark intelligence stuff that Woodward did. He had to know about it, though.
Oh, I'm sure. 56 Pew Pew. Great show as always. Or 556 Pew Pew. Great show as always. Greetings from Norway.
Norway. I love Norway.
Sweden. So
Sweden.
Norway.
I love Norway.
Denmark, I think.
I got to get to Sweden at some point, but I've been to Norway and I've been to Denmark. So I like that. I've been to a few of these countries, so I got to get the rest of them.
It's awesome. Al Gonzalez wrote in, unfortunately, my Saturday flight down had a huge delay due to weather, which then had me arriving at 1 a.m., so I didn't board. Sorry to have missed y'all.
Well, we'll get you at the next one. It's not as bad as that flight to Singapore where the guy died. They had insane turbulence where the plane went straight up in the air.
Feet.
Right. I would have had a heart attack and died. Everybody's head hit the top of the ceiling of the plane, denting him. I mean, I keep my seatbelt on now all the time.
I do.
No.
Directions. It's like,
right.
You know what?
I run to the bathroom and then I feel turbulence, so I'm in the bathroom and I imagine I'm just going to get sucked through the roof of the
holding
plane.
the handle on the side.
It's not going to help. But I think if you're in that lavatory, you can only go so far. You know, the ceiling is right there. But they pulled a woman off the plane.
Well, you had an experience, didn't you, with the porta potty that might be?
Oh yeah, no, I'm petrified.
You're trained up.
Yeah, at Watkins Glen in 1974, I think. But there was a woman, a black woman, who was on in the row with the emergency door, and they were asking her. I have that row going back on Friday. By the way, I think I may be an hour late on Friday, so do not have a freaking heart attack. Because it's Memorial Day weekend, we're going to try to start the show at 6:30 instead of 5:30, just so I can get home. So don't have a meltdown. It's not solar flares. It's just I'm flying that day. But there was a woman on, I think it was Southwest yesterday, who was in the emergency row. And you know how they come to you when they say, are you prepared to assist people in the event of the emergency? So she didn't answer. She wouldn't respond. And you have to verbally agree to the thing. And she said she didn't know what they were talking about, Eric. She was on her phone, going to Texas. Her grandson was graduating. And they pulled her ass off the plane. They literally said, you got to go. You can't just sit here. And it was the whole plane had a deplane. They all had to get off because this woman did not know how to fly in a plane. I mean, when you're 65 years old and you're just figuring out what you're supposed to do in the emergency row, you don't deserve to fly. Let's put it that way. The last thing I want to do is have to climb over her body and open that door.
You couldn't find somebody to swap with her? Be like, hey, anybody?
She wouldn't give it up. She wouldn't buckle.
Oh, my God. Some people.
Anyway, I'm sorry you missed it, Al. We had a great time. Hopefully we'll catch you at the next one. I just want to thank everybody who showed up Saturday night for Viva Cella, the Viva Award ceremony. It was a lot of laughs.
It really was.
It was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of interesting people there, and a lot of the same people who keep showing up. And it's become a little crew of people who are, the base of the America's Untold Story audience that keep showing up for these things.
Yeah, there's a handful who have been to every event that we've put on, and I think 2 people who have been to every one of our events, as well as JFK Lancer in Dallas.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know where we're going next, but we'll let you know, though. But that was a lot of fun, giving him the award, and I presume his name was spelled properly despite his joke.
He said it was a
properly?
joke. Yes.
Okay.
He said, I'm joking.
Okay.
Immediately.
I didn't look at it. He was holding it.
Mark was panicking. Marcus was too busy panicking.
That shit.
Like,
I've seen, dude, they did it with the Martin Luther King statue in D.C. I mean, I've seen it so many times. It happens all the time.
Well, we did open it before we took it down.
Okay.
I had it for a few weeks. So
yeah.
And speaking of awards, we had somebody gave us this amazing coin. Is minted.
Oh, right.
From the Army here, and
yeah, that was really profound. That was profound.
Yeah, it was a really touching gesture. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about the meetup on Friday and what went.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on Friday. I did this guy Luke show yesterday. Luke Rudkowski.
Yeah. He is on Tim Pool quite often.
Right. And Ian was there. It was like a Tim Pool kind of crew. That was fascinating. I'm doing tomorrow, for anybody who watches this, Emerald TV, Emerald Johnson show, 1:00.
Robinson, I think.
Robinson, I'm sorry, I take it back. Emerald TV is what her channel's called, I think. Maybe we could find a link to it for tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the Trump case.
Yeah, and we'll see when we can get to it. She's kind of, I think she's on the My Pillow Guy TV station or whatever. So I don't think that it runs live. You have to catch like the repeat on Rumble or whatever. She's controversial.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think she's.
I like her. She used to be a White House correspondent.
Yeah,
she used to be the literally White House news correspondent. I respect that.
No, I do too. But I'm just saying, she got into hot water with different. It's.
Oh right. I mean,
okay. Welcome to YouTube and etc.
Right.
Alex Davy Duke sounds like Carl Bernstein is the Michael Cohen of journalism.
No,
when can you believe anything
true.
he says? Follow the money.
True. Far from it. I was explaining to someone on the show yesterday that Michael Cohen was involved in a crime that is so inside New York, this illegal selling of medallions, taxi cab medallions. You'd literally have to know New York inside it. Yeah. My uncle had a cab with a medallion, and the medallions used to sell for my uncle sold over $250,000 when he retired. He sold his medallion. Michael Cohen was involved in fraudulently selling taxi cab medallions. It is such an inside New York crime that I almost have crazy, weird, twisted respect for him. in a crime kind of way.
Well, so did the guy you were on with yesterday, Clint. He was saying that he kind of likes,
right.
Said, in this particular case, he's running to be the Libertarian vice president.
Yes. I think he's trying to get Michael Cohen on the show.
He's on Liberty Lockdown podcast, I think, or something like that. I don't remember. It's a very big libertarian
vice president or something.
Yes. And I interviewed a person running for both libertarian president and the vice president at the same time, John McAfee. Back in the day.
Right.
And also Austin Peterson, who was the runner-up in 2016.
Wow. Talk about obscure names.
Well, Austin Peterson's now like a DJ in Kansas.
What is Michael Cohen going to do after this? I mean, he has
time. He just admitted to steal. How about time? He just admitted to stealing $30,000.
Statute of limitations, Hunley.
Sorry. Well, we selectively apply that depending on where you are. You're right. I'm sure he'll slide by. I bet he could work at CNN.
Oh, yeah, but it loses its veracity. Well, if Trump wins, he'll have 4 years of what's her name's over there? The chick who used to be Bush's on MSNBC. She was his press secretary or someone. There's a bunch of these ex-Republican versions who went over to CNN and
Well,
MSNBC.
Karl Rove was on Fox.
I don't
forever,
think
and
no.
then he
He's
shifted.
kind of still on Fox, right, Rove? But there were.
I think
What's
so,
the
yeah.
woman's name? The blonde woman who's on
Oh, I don't remember.
MSNBC. She's always melting down about Trump. She used to be on the Republican side.
Mm.
Anyway, somebody knows in the chat.
Yeah. Pamela Clifton said, "Hi guys, my Robert Groden book is on its way. I'm so
What?
excited. Thank you for another interesting episode." Yes, and I
Holy
received
crap.
mine yesterday. So
Okay, the system's working.
They're coming at folks.
When am I going to get mine? She hasn't responded to me. She never calls me. I'm upset, Hunley and Mark. Why don't you respond to me asking about my response to her? Because we don't have time. We really don't have time.
No. All the books, I'm sure, will be delivered at some point. And everybody, please be patient.
Yeah.
How about the Phillies?
That's a great. I don't know. I haven't been following. I've been on the road. I don't know what the Phillies are doing, bro. That's a great line though for $10. Thank you. That's very funny. I don't know how the Phillies are doing it. It's some sort of magic monkey beads or something out there in Philadelphia.
Yep. BTK. Watergate sounds like a CIA setup to dump Nixon without Nixon being involved. It's Nixon derangement syndrome. It paid off. Ford and Rockefeller too. Yeah.
It's more like a Pentagon takedown than a CIA one. It's CIA working with the Pentagon. The real driver of this thing was the military. And it was because of his opening the door to China and an ABM treaty with the Soviets and being in the dark. So that Thomas Mora spy ring that we talked. It's not Psaki. There's a blonde. It's not Psaki. Psaki used to be CIA.
Kayleigh McKinnon.
Nope,
Kayleigh McKinnon? No, she's on Fox still.
Sorry.
Somebody will get it.
They're both wrong. Anyway, so I think it was a military coup d'etat, which is what silent coup is about. And it's militarily. I know everybody likes to say CIA does everything. Mm-hmm. They do work for people who run those puppet strings and will do things. All of those
military ties with Kennedy too.
Right, but I'm saying this. They actually caught them here stealing the documents from Kissinger's office. Nicole Wallace, thank you. That's what I was thinking. Thank you, John. Nicole Wallace. Yeah, but I'm saying this thing was a military coup d'etat.
All right. Well, we are going to be late on Friday, but in order for everybody to get ready, you can always have some coffee.
Oh, well, you could drink the coffee while you're waiting.
Exactly. You can have some coffee, be up a little bit later, especially our friends overseas. I don't know if they've bought coffee overseas, but you could always get some coffee at americansuntoldstories.com/coffee. Mm-hmm. Highly encourage it. Mark, you did get yours, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have it here, but it's at home.
All right.
When I get home on Friday, I'll mix up a batch. Nixon assassination via media since Magic Bullet used in Dallas.
Yes.
Well, somebody's son reached out to me whose father was involved in the two assassination attempts, or one of them, on Nixon in Miami and Key Biscayne before they got into the Watergate debacle. They said, I don't know, it's an odd thing to brag about that my dad was.
I saw that. And, he got upset. He said, I'm not bragging. I was just setting the record straight on what happened or something.
I mentioned your dad's name. I said his dad was I don't know what record he's setting straight other than bragging about that was my dad. You could spin it any way you want.
I think he said that you said his uncle and is really his dad or something. I don't remember, but
he said, I don't know who he is. I'm saying the guy's name. I didn't know this guy was his son. What do I know about this guy? I just said the guy's name who was the assassin or potential assassin, and he came in and said, "That's my dad. He was a great assassin or something."
Yeah, I don't remember that went down. I was just kind of like, we hear from a lot of different people, and it's very interesting.
Well, I mean, when I hear from the sons of CIA people or the sons of people that are supposedly tangentially involved in the assassination of JFK, it doesn't really interest me. You know, I don't really care that your uncle was this or your father was that. It never phases me, because I know how radically different I am from my own parents, from my own brothers, from my own relatives. Doesn't faze me. So you could keep telling me your second cousin was John Wilkes Booth twice removed, but it's meaningless to me. It's just some pop culture oddity, which is fine. I mean, as a pop culture oddity, it's interesting, but.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's in simple words, we're not holding it against anybody.
No, but I'm not holding it for them either. It's not against it. It's kind of like a mundane point.
Yeah, it kind of is. Kind of is, but what is not a mundane point is locals.
Oh,
we're going to head over there.
Oh,
we're going to have
I forgot about
party,
that. Oh,
hang out with the folks, and
we got to get this article up there on the CIA and the media before it disappears from the internet. It's 25,000 words. Rolling Stone, October 20th, 1977.
That one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got it. It's on Carl Bernstein's site.
Okay. Well, let's put it on our site.
I'm going to. That'll be up on Locals later on today.
Right on.
And
the world would be different if Michael J. Pollard had played Carl Bernstein. That's all I can tell you, C.W. Moss, because he deserves his own episode. Michael J. Pollard, who used to be the boyfriend of Janis Joplin at one point, among other crazy things that Michael J. Pollard got into.
Well, having said that, we'll talk about it more over at Locals and see everybody there.